So we're going to start with the MECO Achievement Strategies Program, and Mr. Meyer is here. Ms. Demerson is here as well. Mr. Meyer, I believe you're going to start.
Yes, all right, so welcome. I am speaking on behalf of a team who leads the MECO Achievement Strategies. Myself, Ms. Deborah Jemison, Catherine Curran, and Karen Baker. We all take part in heading the MECO Achievement Strategies. Now, what is it? It is a place where students are able to build relationships with teachers and have a safe space, specifically how to navigate a place like Concord. How do you email a teacher who might be rather intimidating? How do you ask for help, self-advocate? That's a lot of what we do, accompanied with academics. We are helping students make sure that they're on top of their academics. So what's it look like to be executive functioning successful, when you are traveling to and fro your home every day for long distances, remembering this is a locationally based program. We provide SEL. That's a huge part. Okay, you're frustrated with school. We are in the middle of a pandemic. What does that look like? How can we express that emotion and still meet with success, however we define that? Because a big part of MECO Achievement Strategies is enabling our students to feel successful in themselves. So to sum it up, a large part of what we do is academics, SEL, relationships, and teaching them self-advocacy and navigation in Concord Public Schools. That's MECO Achievement Strategies.
Thank you. Ms. Oakers?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Oakers, and I, too, am speaking on behalf of the entire English department, and can talk a little bit about what our reading program looks like in all 3 grades as an overview, and then specifically in each grade. So over the past few years, the district has really embraced this goal of being more culturally inclusive. And our first steps were really around adding lit circle choices with more diverse topics and authors. So a couple of options or pictures, examples you can see. In the 6th grade, the 6th grade team added The Wanderer. In 7th grade, they added a whole unit, a couple of examples just being Outcast United and Refugee, but it's basically a whole refugees unit. And in 8th grade, we have Justice Lit Circles and Holocaust Lit Circles, where there's a whole variety of cultures and ethnicities represented. And behind all of them, the idea being there's a young person who, like Amanda Gordon today, offers the promise of change and hope. And we love to have our students, all the students, the white students and the students of color, see these incredible role models and their seeking of justice. So Lit Circles is sort of where we began. Then the next slide, Mr. Cameron. In 6th grade, in addition to the Lit Circles, they adopted this year, brand new, a text written by Jason Reynolds, and it's called, Look Both Ways. And it really came to us at first through the library and Miss Stockwood and her team. They had it as a summer reading book, and we thought it's so rich that it deserves really to be taught and have all students have it as a core text experience. So it's a book of 10 short stories where there are different groups, different individual students who live in a community, in a neighborhood, and they just live their daily life going to school, and it sort of comes together in this beautiful way around this school community. But it's a great story that all kids will read and really have an authentic voice brought to us by Jason Reynolds, and authentic voices actually. And Seed Folks is another text that is a beautiful story of a community garden in Cleveland, where all different people from different backgrounds learn to see each other and value each other and their differences as they work together to build this community garden. So those are the experiences in 6th grade. In 7th grade, I'm really proud of the work the 7th grade team has done, where they've had the core texts, Home of the Brave, God Grew Tired of Us, in Tangerine and Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. All of them really bring something to the table. A voice that's underrepresented is represented in those texts. And then the Lit Circle choices, as I mentioned, are all different refugee stories, but from various backgrounds that are really interesting, I think, for students to learn about and understand. And the new core text this year that the 7th grade adopted came in response to Laura Regis, but also the whole team's work with the GSA and students in that club saying, we feel like we're not represented either, and that it's great the school is doing a nice job of trying to represent more culturally diverse backgrounds, but what about our voice? So the core text they adopted is Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World. And really it was intended to just normalize a very innocent middle school LGBTQ character and create safe space for students who are just learning about all of that. And the time is really ripe for middle schoolers to have these authentic conversations. And the teachers have said it's going incredibly well. And of course they were nervous, and maybe some parents were nervous, and some students might have at first felt that, but it's going really well because people just embraced the opportunity to talk about these issues. So that's what was going on in 7th grade. And in 8th grade, we still have some work to do in 8th grade in terms of choosing a new core text that is more culturally responsive. But what we've done in the meantime is, as I said, we have the literature circle groups. So we've got a couple of different units. One that we're currently in the middle of is the Holocaust unit. So we're making sure that the Jewish voice and experience is heard and told. And we read it through memoir, and then through some fiction stories as well. And in addition to the lit circles, we have a theme through our outside reading program of literature acting as window and mirror, which is not a new theme globally, but we're making it more explicit this year in 8th grade. And so the students are asked to choose books in which they see themselves mirrored, and what is that like? And also to choose intentionally books that are a window into an experience that's different from their own. And we thought through that first book in a social emotional learning kind of way, and the students created podcasts around what does it mean to take perspectives and have empathy and have compassion. And their podcasts are really wonderful, and I think they're available on the library website if people are interested in listening to those. So I know that was a really fast overview of the efforts we're making in English to have a more representative canon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. You know, I just want to again plug before we transition to the next slide. In about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to offer up any and all members of our community. We're going to promote you to have more of a Zoom experience. I would like to offer up a prompt. I really appreciate Sarah naming that a lot of our teachers felt some vulnerability of offering the new 7th grade text. We actually had Ashley Herring Blake, the author of Ivy, visit a faculty meeting to really promote the confidence and the willingness, that I think all of our teachers and quite frankly, even administrators, needed to hear. So just a quick prompt of, some further discussion that can happen around the 7:20, 7:25. Okay, 7th grade math, Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa Scalzi, teach 7th grade math. And I am talking about, on behalf of the math teachers for the 7th grade, we kind of struggle with math with people coming in, they think they're not good at math. They have a vision of what a mathematician looks like. So we decided to come up with, this was our response basically to try and not just to let all the kids be able to see that they can be a mathematician. And so in their minds, typically mathematicians are white men, and like that's who everybody knows. And that's just not the case. So it's hard to put something like this into a math curriculum because it's not like hey, do this problem, here's this word problem, solve it. It's different. So we struggled a little bit with how we could present it. So this is what we came up with. This is an extra credit project where students are they're told they can research any mathematician they want. They're given a very exhaustive spreadsheet of many different mathematicians that they can look at. They can choose from, or they can pick someone else, anyone that they feel speaks to them, or looks like them, or somehow they can relate to, or someone they just find interesting. So, and then they research this mathematician and create a Google slide on them. And the one that's on this slide is one of the students. We just started this since we got back from winter break, so we're still getting them in. And as they come in, I print them, I put them in the classroom, and keeping a log of them so kids can see who's been done. And it's so far been quite good. So the kids is, be able to see like that they can see themselves in a mathematician and have some kind of a role model and be able to identify with them. And so far it's been, it's been pretty successful. So hopefully this is something that we'll just keep going, and more kids will do it. And like I said, right now it's extra credit, but we are getting a lot of participation. So that's really good.
Great. That's good. Thank you, Teresa. Anna, music?
I think I'm going to steal that idea, Teresa. I love it.
Go for it.
So in music department, we've always had our sixth grade's general music curriculum centered around African Americans and their contributions to American music and history. Without them, our American music wouldn't sound the way it does today. We study the musical history, timeline, and genres from spirituals to ragtime to blues and jazz. That's general music. In orchestra curriculum, we've played spirituals and various composers from different cultures from around the world. I like to have the students see themselves in our curriculum, reflected in our curriculum. We are currently studying Duke Ellington's piece, Don't Get Around Much Anymore, which is kind of fitting for this year, and his biography. We have done a Chinese folk song last year. We've done several Japanese and even a Russian piece. We've talked about how Morocco has different regions and different music. We've listened to an Arabic tune, and we've even learned to play it on our instruments by rote. I've been helping several Boston students and others in my class over Zoom. Zoom has made it really easy to give extra help. I'm a traveling teacher, so it's really hard to find time to get together with students other than lunch. So Zoom has enabled me to give help, and that's been great. It has made this summer I met with several students over Zoom. Two were from Boston, and one of them said she wanted to quit violin, and after several sessions she's still playing it and she's in the program. So that's the part of my job that makes it so satisfying for me. I have taken summer classes over the past several years, and especially this summer in fall, in cultural competency. I want the orchestra curriculum to reflect my students, as we call it, windows and mirrors here. Several pieces are ordered right now on the way. One is by a Black composer, and one is by an Arabic tune. So I can't wait to get them. It's not easy to research this. The information is not readily available on the web, and I certainly have not ever been taught about Black musicians, or not enough, to be able to put something like this together. I'm working on a course that is a self-paced course. It's my big project right now. It's going to be asynchronous, or it can be synchronous, but it's self-paced, and it's going to be about Black musicians who are string musicians and composers. And the more time I put into it, the more information I find. But again, it's not easy to find that information on the website, on Google, or in the library. So this project is a result of Terry Smolka's class that I took this summer on Modern Classroom Project Platform. And we're going to do this in the spring. one of the pictures you see here on the slide is a coloring book of Black composers. It's going to be used in the course. Another book I found was on De Chevalier of St. George. He was a contemporary of Mozart. I've never heard of him, but he was composing and conducting in Britain at the same time as Mozart lived. So it would be cool for kids to learn about him.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Grade 8 science. Ms. Moss could not join us this evening. I forget which member of the leadership team has this slide.
Me, Mr. Cameron.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry Ms. Moss is not here. She's awesome and would do a better job than I will on this, but I will share what I know. I think the first piece that Ms. Moss does is when we're talking about representation, she really makes sure that she knows her science students. So you can see in the first picture here, a form that students fill out where they give her information about who they are. And some of the questions are about interests and some are about identity. And that really allows her to respond to them as individual learners in her classroom. And then some of the practices that you've just heard about in orchestra and in math, where she's making sure to highlight underrepresented members of the science community. So posting quotes and not just putting a quote up with a name, but making sure that if it's that students are able to see that there are many scientists of color who are contributing to the science community in addition to the largely white men that we all learned about when we were in school. And then incorporating music into class and highlighting contributions even outside of the science world of artists of color for students as well. The desk biographies program at the bottom there, another opportunity for students to learn about science contributors of color. And then even her Zoom waiting room, you can see in the bottom left there, is a quote along with the image of the person who said the quote, who is a scientist of color. So just making sure that students are aware that the representation isn't accurate that so many of them have seen throughout their science careers.
Thank you. CMS Library.
Okay, hi everybody. I am not the CMS library specialist, but I'm going to certainly share with you some ways that the library embraces cultural competency and bringing a diverse community through our book collection. Elizabeth Stockwood, who is our library specialist, shared with me a lot of her book selection is done spending lots of time and effort really pouring through professional journals, reviews, collaborating with colleagues through the Mass Library Association and ECHO. Additionally, using relevant and timely job-like groups and other social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, things like that with her colleagues to really drive very current and relevant texts. So the library really does a great job making books available to our kiddos, driving, through trends of middle school, young adult literature that follow our societal and cultural awareness. Efforts target throughout the library independent reading, curriculum, research across all areas, but most and very visibly selection of nonfiction books for the 8th grade social studies curriculum and justice research. Elizabeth is always available, always looking for what's relevant and always really happy to talk and share out this collection to promote diversity and social justice with our students. It's terrific.
Excellent, thank you. And we move on to world language.
Good evening, my name is Courtney Sawicki. I'm the chair of the World Language Department. I am here with Maria Sierra. She is one of our Spanish teachers, and so she's going to help me to present the slides that we have for you. But I wanted to just start by reading a quote from the Massachusetts Framework for Teaching World Language. I think it's a really powerful one, so I wanted to share it with you. World language education and social justice education are intrinsically linked. By supporting all students and affirming the inherent worth of all languages and cultures, this framework recognizes the inseparable relationship between languages, cultures, and social justice. So in the World Language Department, we celebrate diversity in a number of different ways, from inviting guest speakers, literature, music, film, and current events. Next slide. Thank you. Guest speakers such as Brice Capel, who we have welcomed to the middle school on numerous occasions. He is a singer that was born in Togo. He now lives in Paris, but he comes to the United States to visit different schools to talk about growing up in Africa and what his experience was like. It is a really powerful presentation. He presents through song and dance. He presents mostly in French, but through gestures and singing, he does an amazing job of communicating with kids and sort of sharing his experience of what it was like to grow up in Africa. We also celebrate diversity through discussing current events with our students, various cultural readings, and video clips like the one from Mai Lingani, who grew up in a small village in Africa. And so she talks about her experience there and talks about the importance of language, because in the village where she grew up, you could go to the neighboring village and you would need to know a different language because they spoke an entirely different language there. So she talks about all of the different languages that they speak. Next slide. Thank you. We also talk about Americans who are Francophone, like Serena Williams up in the corner. And then this is where Maria, I think, is going to take over. Yes. Maria does a film class and also uses lots of music in her classes. Maria.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maria Sierra, and I teach Spanish and French 6th grade at the Peabody building, but from my room this year. I did a lot of work this summer trying to find ways to show different cultures, different music, and I found this amazing singer called Maître Jim, that is a fabulous rapper and amazing dancing. And so I had the kids actually listen to his song and sing for their homework that night. And the people that are all dressed in different colors are called les sapeurs, which are men in the Republic of Congo that are very poor. You know, they don't have a lot of money, but they somehow manage to get dressed up every day. They never repeat their outfits. And somehow with no money, they look the way they look right there. It is a huge cultural piece in the Republic of Congo. They're very well respected and they walk around with so much dignity in their beautiful suits. So the kids had a really fun time listening to that and learning about les sapeurs. And I also offer a film class called Exploring Language Through Film. And this year we've done 2 movies, and one is Under the Same Moon. And the reason why I wanted to show that is because it's about a little boy that lives in Mexico. He's Mexican and he lives with his grandmother. Grandmother passes away and his mom lives in LA. So the whole movie is his journey to get from Mexico to his mother and all the terrible things that happen and the way that he perseveres to get to his mom. And in the end, of course, he gets there. So the kids talked a lot about and wrote about how he persevered and they really enjoyed it. And the other one is The Well Rider, which was great too. Where it explores a little bit of the Maori tribe in New Zealand and their struggles to find a new leader. And they also enjoyed that very much. And that's it.
So our final few slides, and I guess I'll give a 5-minute warning to all parents and community members who would like to join us in this conversation, be promoted and have more of a Zoom experience. We're about 5 minutes away from that. I do want to mention that Mr. Steffi will be presenting the slides on grade 8 social studies. And the reason for that is because Sita, who presented these slides at school committee a little over a month ago, is occupying this very same space right now with 8th grade students and leading an 8th grade book group, Stamped Racism, Antiracism, and You, with Laura Regis and our 8th grade students, or some of our 8th grade students who signed up, which could have been a slide on its own. Mr. Steffi?
Yep, thank you very much. So the next 3 slides are from Mr. Vasla and describe the 8th grade social studies. In speaking with Mr. Vasla, she began by saying that one of the biggest differences between 6th and 7th grade social studies and 8th grade social studies is the beginning of the study of how we, students and CMS community members, are a part of history. I thought that was a very neat way of framing these 3 slides. The first unit, there are 3 separate units. Each is one of the 3 slides is identity. And it tackles how society influences an individual's identity. Sita Dervasla mentioned that this is a particularly popular, for lack of a better word, unit for our kiddos, because as many of our families know, our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, it's age appropriate, love to talk about themselves. And so to be able to explore one's identity and one's role in history is really the main part of this Unit 1 on identity. Next slide, please, Mr. Cameron. Thank you. Units 2 and 3 focus on what Mr. Vasla calls we and they, and more deeply examines our role in history. They discuss in Unit 2 specifically what our assumptions are and what our role, what our role in history is. I said that already. There it is, the we and they and the us and them. And the final slide, please, Mr. Cameron. Thank you. The final slide is about the unit in which the students tackle more of how slavery began and the resistance with the abolitionist movement. Mr. Voss, in our conversation today, explained to me that there's a period in which there's an interracial democracy. And one of the things that they do in this unit is they examine the value of that and discuss why that is something that historically has not been featured in social studies curricula. And there you have it, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Steffi. So at this point, I would again give explicit permission for the teachers, especially the department chairs who are part of this, as they have their budgets due, their FY22 budgets due tomorrow, to transition out. You certainly may stay. And at this time, we are asking any and all community members and parents to raise your hand. You can also ask a question in the Q&A, especially if you might not be in a room. You know, that offers an opportunity to be a part of a traditional Zoom. So you can either offer the Q&A, or we're looking for parents, guardians, and community members to maybe put their hand up to be promoted to more of a discussion part of our program. And again, for the teachers who are saying goodbye, thank you so much for taking some time in your evening. What I'm most proud of is a lot of this work started well before my entry into Concord Middle School 4 years ago. My Java-like group right now, and I was debating whether or not to name this, but I'm going to, especially where I invited them to be a part of the audience. A lot of them are asking, and these are principals in the surrounding districts, how do they start this important work? And my answer to that is, why are you starting this important work? You know, the answer that I've heard, which is, well, you know, the community and, you know, the country is demanding that this work be made a priority and it's urgent. While I agree with that, you know, we're so fortunate to be in a district that has laid a lot of the foundation of this work. We've been doing book groups for a number of years. The reason to share the poem that was shared a little earlier today was because we watched it, part of the RISE group this afternoon. The RISE group, which is our group of allies for Black and Brown students, has been around for the last either 3 or 4 years. Ms. Jemison and Ms. Okers are part of that. So again, if you want to raise your hand, I will promote you. If you want to ask a Q&A, you can toss that in the Q&A.
Mr. Cameron, if you'd like any help promoting, I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you. And I'm actually going to stop the recording for the discussion piece. So I'm going to do that right now.